We're going to get started. If everybody go ahead, I know this is a wonderful time. Everybody's having a good time. But if everybody can go ahead and have a seat, and we'll go ahead and get started because we got a long agenda, and it's Thursday and the last day, and everybody wants to go home because we got some peach trees we got to check and be sure it's cold enough back there. But so if everybody takes it. All right, we'd get started. I'd like to ask Representative Hilton if he would please have our devotion.
If you'd bow your heads, close your eyes with me. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for the men and women that are in this room today. We pray that you help us, Lord, to serve you and serve the state of Georgia. We thank you, Lord, for your grace and mercy that you've given us, and we ask for that grace and mercy today as we make decisions on behalf of so many great citizens of Georgia. We pray these things in your holy name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much. All right, go ahead. If I could ask, I always like to do this. There's some seats over here, so I think if there are any vacant seats, let people know we got a great crowd. I'm glad to see this. I always like to do this when we start off. Do we have any, first of all, students here? Students, just raise your hand or stand up. I want to see these students. That's what it's all about, our students. Yeah. Everybody knows this is Advanced Placement Day, AP Day at the Capitol. Thank y'all so much. And they had a great group of students and different people here, so we're always glad to have them here because that's the reason we exist. How about any teachers that are presently teaching in these schools with these students? Now, not that you want to be, you used to be, or you can't believe you were. Stand up. Let's see our new teachers. This is your first time here. Teachers, stand up. We want to welcome you, too. We're proud of you, yeah. And since we're and how many here, this is your first time you've ever attended a education house or senate meeting? Stand up. Let's see you. Any of you first timers? All right. Hey, we're not sure if you'll ever come back, but we know you're going to enjoy it today. Yes, we do. Today is our joint House and Senate meeting, and the whole purpose of the meeting is to hear from various agencies that work with us and that have some things that they're doing, and they'll be talking to us about projects, and they'll be talking to us about legislation and different things they'll be doing this year. We do not plan to take up any legislation. Those of you who asked what we were going to pass today, we're not going to do that. So, but we will be doing that. We plan to be here. Now, just because we've got it scheduled from 2 to 4 doesn't mean you need to have 2 to 4 because we have a lot. So we appreciate people who speak quickly, use auction speed, and move ahead. Yes, we do. So get your point across and talk with us. I would like to do this, if I could, before we start, because we do have some new people. I'd like to start to my right, and if you would, what's the last number down there? I'll try to mash your button, and it'll come on, and I'll click you up here. And starting down that end, all right, it's 29. Give your name, your district, and quickly. We just want you to meet everybody, and senators and House members together. All right. 29, all right.
Mr. Chairman, I'm Jesse Stone, State Senator, District 23, Waynesboro.
Very good. 28.
Hi, I'm Dwayne Hill, District 3, Catoosa County. Thank you.
All right, 27.
Representative Dave Belton from the real Buckhead, Georgia.
All right, 26.
Representative Randy Nix, House District 69, that's Troop Herd in Carroll counties.
All right, 25.
I'm Representative Joyce Chandler, and I serve in District 105, which is parts of Grayson, Lawrenceville, and some of Tacoola.
All right, 24.
I'm Beth Beskin from House District 54, which is the real Buckhead where you want to be. Buckhead, Atlanta, and historic Brookhaven. We're
going to vote on that at the end and see who really likes that. All right. 23.
My name is Scott Hilton, District 95, Gwinnett County, Peachtree Corners, home of, we have a child at Simpson Elementary, one of the best elementary schools in Georgia.
All right, 22. Hey, wait just a second. You also have the best elementary school, the one that I opened in 1970. What's the name of it?
We also have the Brooks Coleman.
No, Peachtree. Peachtree Elementary.
Peachtree
Yeah,
Elementary.
yeah.
Yeah.
Soon to be.
Soon to be.
All right, 22, all right.
Matt Brass, District 28, all of Coweta, all of Hurd, part of Troop, part of Carroll, part of Fulton.
And to my right, someone I couldn't get along without. She's fantastic. Introduce yourself.
Courtney George, House Budget and Research Office.
Of course, I'm Brooks Coleman from Gwinnett County, District 97, Duluth, Swanee, Sugar Hill, and 12 voters in Buford, Georgia, and 11 of them vote. All right.
I'm Lindsey Tippin, Senate District 37. I have Northwest Cobb and chair the Senate Education Committee.
All right, 19, all right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Mike Glenn. I represent District 75 in Clayton County, and I'd like to especially welcome to this committee meeting, Mr. Chairman, my wonderful students and constituents from Jonesboro High School in Clayton County, Georgia.
Hey, all right, and a new member, and it's always good to have new members. This is her first time, and she's a little nervous, I'm sure, because she's never seen anything like this, I'm sure. But I am proud of her. B. Wynn. So, B, what's your number, 18? All right, introduce yourself.
I'm B. Wynn. I represent District 89, which is City of Atlanta and unincorporated DeKalb County. And I actually have the best elementary school in my district, Mary Lynn. And Mary Lynn, Chairman Coleman is actually a product of that. So we know it really is the best one.
It is, yeah. I graduated from there when Miss Mary was principal. You got it. Honey, you all right. You don't have to worry. Number 18, all right. I'm 17. Oh, 17. What year did I graduate? Noah was looking for. All right, 17, all right.
I'm State Representative Valencia Stovall, House District 74 in Clayton County, in the cities of Morrow, Lake City, Forest Park, College Park, and Riverdale.
All right. What, number 16? All right.
Yes. Good afternoon. I'm State Representative Doreen Carter. I represent House District 92, and that's parts of DeKalb and Rockdale County. I have the cities of Conyers, Stonecrest, and Lithonia, and the Rockdale Magnet students that are here visiting. They're on their way.
Good. 15. All right, Senator.
I'm State Senator Harsina Tate. I represent District 38, which is a bit of Fulton. It goes from the west side of Fulton down into the city, the new city of South Fulton. And I also represent some of Cobb, which would be Smyrna, Mableton, and Austell.
Now, to age myself a little bit, her father and I used to be presidents of the professional association. We merged the two associations back years ago, and we're great friends back when we both started in education. Great father, great guy. We had some good times together. All right, David, you're number 14, right?
Yes, sir. Representative David Cassis, District 107 in Gwinnett County. I represent Lilburn, parts of Snellville, and Lawrenceville.
Right, 13.
Good afternoon. I'm Senator Elena Parent. I represent parts of DeKalb County in the Senate, District 42. I've got parts of Atlanta. I've got the cities of Decatur and Avondale Estates, and parts of Brookhaven and Chamblee, and everything in between southern Brookhaven and Chamblee down to the Atlanta line. Glad to be here. I also have Maryland Elementary.
Hey, all right, all right. Hey, we'll have to go out there for lunch one day. That'd be good. All right. Number 1, all right, there. And he is number 1, I tell you.
State Representative Robert Dickey, House District 140, parts of 5 counties in Middle Georgia, and I'm not a part of this education committee, but I'm chairman of K through 12 appropriations for the House.
And we need, money is an acceptable way to say I love you, so we need him here. Yes, we do. Freddie, what's your number? What's your 9? Okay. One of my great friends. All right, Senator.
Good afternoon. State Senator Freddie Powell Sims from Southwest Georgia, and I represent 11 counties in Southwest Georgia.
All right. Next 10.
Representative Tommy Benton from Jackson County. I represent House District 31. I'm a retired educator, and right now my not my hometown, but the town I live in now is home to the state wrestling champions for the last 17 years in a row. That's classes A through Quad A. Thank you.
They are good, yeah. 12 now, okay?
I represent Rockdale and Newton Counties, House District 113. Thank you.
All right. And to my left over here, and I think it's very important, Jennifer, y'all stand up, all my, and yours here, all the stand and introduce yourselves. We've had a big change in the house. We've had Sheena. She moved and she's still in the fiscal office though, but we have some great people that are working and taking the place. So y'all introduce yourselves. Start with that, Jennifer. She's our intern, all right?
Hey, I'm Jennifer Whitlow. I'm a junior at Georgia College, and I'm interning with the House Education Committee district.
Yeah, and to continue on that Georgia College tradition, I'm his new AA, Kaylin Mikulski. I've met some of you. I'm looking forward to meeting others of you as well.
And next.
I'm Annie Wimbush, and I'm with the Senate Press Office.
Good. Did I get it? Hey, there. I'm sorry. Yes. Okay. Good.
Megan Andrews, I staff education and youth for the Senate Research Office.
And I'm Lauren Veneta. I staff higher ed for the Senate Research Office.
Well, you see us. Here we are. So we're ready for those are the credits. Now we're ready for the main productions. What we're ready for. Senator, I'm gonna call on Senator Timmons now to tell you the reason the Joint Committee and say a few words to you. And we're always glad to work with them, good friends. And Senator, I'm turning it over to you. Take it away.
Want to welcome each of you here, and I'm glad for your attendance. We always try to have a joint meeting the first of every session for the groups that would like to come and address both chamber committees. It's a little bit more feasible, I think, to get us together than it is to have y'all come on two different occasions. So that's the reason we're here. We'll move on. I appreciate you being here.
And I'll say to anyone here, we will not allow today any comments from the audience or questions. But if you have something you need to see someone, come up to my left, give a note, and they'll give it to us. We'll be glad to talk with you. Please turn your phones off, as we said, and be sure they're off. And if we would, if you have, like I said, if you have anything you need to say, let us know. And if you're not on the program today, but you feel you need to be, you just have to talk with us, please see one of our assistants here, and they will schedule for you for a future meeting. We meet every Thursday at 2:00. That's the education meeting. And Senator, when is your dates of your meetings?
We meet Monday and Wednesday at 3:00.
So let us know, and we'd love to have you come speak at either one of the meetings. So,
hang on a minute.
Yes, sir.
My administrative assistant and also intern are here, Samantha Nix and Abigail in the back. I appreciate y'all being here. Hold up your hands so everybody can see. If y'all need to get a hold of me or get something scheduled, call the office. One of these two ladies will take care of it.
Y'all come on up and sit up here if you'd like. Because you may need to take notes. You can have one of these seats. Come on. If there are any representatives or senators in the crowd, please come on up and take a seat. We don't invite you to come up. Any reps or senators, please come up. All right, without any further ado, we have some very, very interesting and important people speaking today. And let's start off with our school superintendent. So if you would, Mr. Richard Woods, he's going to come and present. You can present there or you can come to the table, whichever you prefer. And remember, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, so you don't want you to take 20 minutes apiece. No way. All right. And that's not for yours, because you always do a good job there, Mr. Superintendent. Okay, you're on.
Okay. I think you should have a copy of the presentation, so in case we do have some technical glitches, we'll kind of follow with that. But
these are all on your desk.
Yeah.
They should be in a stack there, so fine. Hold that up, Courtney. See, that's what it looks like.
Okay. Again, Chairman Coleman and Chairman Tippins and members of the House and Senate Education Committee, appreciate the time and opportunity to highlight some of the major initiatives and really celebrate a lot of great things that are going on throughout the state in education today. And so we'll, kind of move right into that. Let's see. Get this going. Again, recently, Georgia's state ESSA plan, or Every Student Succeeds Act, with our federal plan, was approved by USAID last Friday. Specifically, Georgia received praise for including indicators in our CCRPI that went beyond just test scores. The redesigned CCRPI recognizes the importance of physical activity for students, attendance, access to advanced coursework, again, perhaps such as, AP and IB, as we celebrate that today at the Capitol. With Georgia's growing arts and film industry as well, and as we look at Amazon and perhaps other tech companies coming to Georgia, we have in development new computer science standards right now, and of course our CCRPI provides indicators that will align with those businesses and industries as we move forward. So we do see a lot of great alignment within that area. You know, our state ESSA plan was truly a plan that was developed by Georgians for Georgians. We held shareholder feedback sessions all over the state and gathered, you know, feedback from thousands of Georgians via surveys and open email address, and hundreds of Georgians, you know, representing students, educators, school leaders, business and industry, post-secondary institutions, state agencies, and nonprofits, all working in groups and advisory committees throughout really was amounted to about a 2-year process. Our plan is centered on supporting the whole child. It also articulates our commitment to pursuing flexibility and innovation, and especially in the area of testing. And again, this is something I'm excited about, and of course we will partner with the General Assembly as we move forward in looking at that as a whole. Today, Georgia again is on the move and already, excuse me, delivering on increased outcomes for our students. At an over 80% graduation rate, this is an all-time high for the new cohort methodology. Also, 98% of the grad rate for students taking, you know, we have a 98% grad rate for students taking just one AP course, a 96% grad rate for CTAE pathway completers, and we're right at 89.4%, you know, for individuals who are part of the military, you know, community as well. And especially in noting the military success, I think what we see is that in all our grade bands as well, this particular group of students actually surpasses, you know, all state markers in both reading and math. So, you know, we're very pleased to see that. We're seeing across the board increase in our CCRPI for elementary, middle, and high schools. More students are taking advantage of AP and dual enrollment and participating in STEM or in STEAM. And again, that's science, technology, engineering, math. And with the A, we add the arts and opportunities as well. Reading levels are also rising. Last year, the Lake Isle score measuring reading increased 10 points for third graders and 15 points for fourth graders. And of course, this is really good because we know the importance of having this marker, you know, being seen on the rise at the early grades is very important. But no doubt there's, you know, there is more progress. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. There's more progress to be made in Georgia, but we are moving in the right direction, and this has been a really exciting, you know, 3 years that we have seen this take place. And in addition to increasing outcomes, we have focused on increasing opportunities for students. And that is one thing that we have been very dedicated to working, expanding opportunities for our children throughout the state, and, you know, from north, south, east, and west. And one of the ways in which we have done this is in our CTAE program. It is giving tens of thousands of our students multiple pathways to success. Not only are students learning skills that will ensure success in our technical colleges, but thousands of our CTAE pathway completers, you know, are pursuing fields in four-year universities, joining the military, or entering the workforce right after high school. Decades ago, CTAE was seen as a vocational track, again, or a shop class. And I'll be honest, as an individual who was teaching and working, you know, these classes perhaps were probably seen as that's what the other kids took. But now we are seeing a great transformation in this area, and something we are very pleased with in the opportunities that we're seeing. And today, thousands of students are earning thousands of industry credentials and succeeding across the board. You know, in this, we are looking at, you know, not only giving our students, you know, pathway completion, but also working with the industry to make sure that they can graduate with credentials that can lead them straight into the workforce. And again, something that industry has been very, very, you know, complimentary of, things that we have worked with, and again, our hard work in seeing really a relationship with business that I have never seen, you know, in my life as an educator. The young woman at the top of the slide is Deandra Wiggins. Deandra is a 2017 graduate of North Springs High School in Sandy Springs. She discovered her love of technology through web and digital design at CTAE Pathway. Again, she is now majoring in computer engineering at Georgia State. So again, as I shared, this is a pathway for for many students in different areas. The young man at the bottom of the slide is Clayton Slivers, the ROTC CTA pathway at Troop High School. was the first step of Clayton's military career. He is now continuing that path at the United States Military Academy at West Point. So again, a lot of diversification within individuals who were involved in our CTAE program. Again, CTAE pathway completers have a 96% graduation rate. This is nearly 15% higher than the state average. Remember, not only do honor students take these classes, but also at-risk students, students with disabilities, and English language learners. So it's quite a very diverse group of individuals that are involved in these pathways. We have been strongly committed to making sure that CTAE is responsive to the needs of business and industry. All pathways are developed in direct collaboration with business and industry, the technical school system, and the university system of Georgia as well. In fiscal year 2017, students earned more than 35,000 industry-recognized credentials, and more than 20,000 students, completed apprenticeships. So again, this is a very engaged, hands-on, endeavor that we have. We also hired an economic development liaison at the department to coordinate with other state agencies and businesses and industry partners. And to my knowledge, this is the only individual that is embedded in a Department of Education throughout our nation. We also work with school leaders and members of the Economic Development Association to create a certification recognizing school districts that are forming a strong partnership with business and industry. Again, we are continuing our hard work to expand opportunities for students in other areas as well, again, focusing on the whole child. Our STEM program continues to grow. Last year, we developed a STEAM certification for schools, adding the emphasis on arts as well. Over 65 schools have become either STEM or STEAM certified, with over 1,150 in the pipeline to become STEM or STEAM certified. We've updated our art standards that were more than a decade old. As Georgia's creative economy grows, our K-12 system priority on arts education will signal that we are committed to meeting the growing workforce needs of Georgia in the film industry and the creative, in the creative economy as well. Again, a multi-billion-dollar, endeavor throughout the state of Georgia. We will soon also be developing K-12 computer science standards. Our efforts in this area are already yielding results with a 200% increase in computer science certified educators, a $300,000 grant to support districts, and national recognition for our efforts to support personalized learning. We've even been invited to Silicon Valley to share our great work and to serve as a model for other states in this area of computer science. We were recently awarded the state literacy grant of $61.5 million. Because of the quality of our plan, Georgia received the highest award amount and was one of only 3 states to be awarded this grant twice. So this is really quite an accomplishment, and we talk about literacy and the emphasis there. This will provide us, again, for the next 3 years, again, with an abundance of income to help, facilitate this as we continue to focus on literacy throughout the state. We continue also to focus on foundational skills, again, as mentioned, literacy and numeracy. We'll be holding literacy and numeracy institutes for educators across the state this summer with a focus on putting theory into practice. Our grades 1 and 2 literacy and numeracy formative assessment, again, is set to be rolled out this fall. Allison Timberlake, our Deputy Superintendent for Assessment and Accountability, is here to give you a little more information on this. So, Ms. Timberlake or Dr. Timberlake, I'll ask you to come forward.
Thank you, Superintendent Woods, Chairman Coleman, Chairman Tippins, and committee members. Keenville is a game-based formative assessment for grades 1 and 2 that is designed to assess the most essential literacy and numeracy skills necessary for proficiency across grade levels. Instead of sitting down and answering a series of multiple-choice questions, students will interact with engaging challenges that take place in the fun, whimsical town of Keenville on Planet Peachy Keen. Students will help their Keens navigate this town, solve problems, and learn along the way. While students are doing this, teachers will be accessing valuable information on their literacy and numeracy skills while instruction is taking place. This will provide teachers with real-time data to support and empower them to differentiate instruction to meet the needs of all students. Items will range from pre-K to 4th grade, so whether students come in behind or are ready to move on, educators will get information about where their students are performing and how to get them on track. Keenville is based on Georgia standards and provides a bridge from G-Kids to third grade milestones so that educators and parents know their children are on a path to proficiency. Keenville also provides nationally benchmarked information. It will generate Lexile scores to measure literacy and quantile scores to measure numeracy. We are excited about this new innovative approach to formative assessment. And now I'll turn it back over to Superintendent Woods.
Thank you, Dr. Lindbley. Again, this is something we're very excited about, the opportunity of perhaps even what testing could look like, our first serious endeavor into really a formative assessment, and again, which is more of a diagnostic approach. And so it is our commitment, again, to look at and make sure that our kids are reading at grade level by third and with numeracy by fifth grade. So we're excited with this as we move forward. Stephanie Johnson is heading our school improvement efforts in the department. Many of you probably know Stephanie as she comes from APS and was named the Georgia Principal of the Year, a finalist for the National Principal of the Year, and again worked at Maynard Jackson, which was only one of the schools that she helped turn around. So again, to share with some information on school improvement, Ms. Johnson, if you would.
Hello, and to Superintendent Woods and to Chairman Brooks Coleman and Senator Tippins and the committee. Thank you for having me here today. And I have to start with this. So one of the schools that I turned around was Jonesboro High School. So I'm so happy to see you all are here today and just been watching every year as they continue and sustain their growth and development across their test scores. And it looks like the city is really thriving and the school is thriving. That just makes me feel good that when I stepped away, things did not change. So it was great to see you all. You all were in elementary when I was there. So I am Stephanie Johnson, and I've been in the trenches in Georgia. I've turned around 3 schools here and noted for turning around the Maynard Jackson cluster and community, where we realized that it wasn't just turning around one school. If things were going to sustain and build, it was transforming the whole community and bringing everybody on board. And now I have the opportunity to transfer that vision to the Department of Education here and hopefully impact the entire state of Georgia in a positive way. So as you see, our presentation for my portion is all students, all schools, all districts. Our vision for school improvement at DOE, I didn't realize I was navigating also, here we go, and I just mentioned that. What you're seeing is a tiered system of supports that we will be implementing across the state in the coming months. Instead of waiting until schools get on a list, this is a proactive approach that begins providing services and support up front. This also helps us align our efforts in a more cohesive and effective way. The foundation of this system is a framework with the whole child at its center. Our major focus is on effective leadership and coherent instruction. As Superintendent Woods stated, we are offering literacy institutes across the summers where it will begin, and then we will continue with a focus on explicit instruction that builds that relationship between the teacher and the learner in a way that they're going to begin to really conceptualize learning so that the learning transfers into knowledge that continues. And it's not just a hit or miss Band-Aid approach, but we know how to do this. I've done it. I'm telling you it's going to work. So we've identified schools. They have reserved spots at these events, but these opportunities are open to all schools in our new tailored approach. We received positive feedback from our last 2 meetings, and that's where we're holding them statewide to speak to pretty much anyone who would like to come to talk about what do they need. And listening to everyone, whether you are a part of rural, urban, suburban, to find out what do we need to do to fill your gaps. What does equity look like for your community? What do you have that you don't have in a metro community? What do you have in a metro community that you don't have in a rural community? I could probably speak to some of those things, but we really are looking to see what does evidence-based support and resources look like that can come from us so that everything that we do is meaningful when we touch the lives of children in our state. So we will have coaches in schools, and we've instituted 30-day action plans. We're forming strong partnerships with REISs across all tiers. We're working with Advanced Ed to align their accreditation process and our school improvement process. And we're working with state and community entities to focus resources in areas with struggling schools. We're utilizing the Turnaround Advisory Council for feedback and input, as well as collaborating with the CTO. In the past, improving schools was the sole responsibility of the School Improvement Division. However, under Superintendent Wood's leadership, the entire agency is working together to leverage resources and expertise to support our schools. I look forward to having the opportunity to sit down with each of you and go into greater detail about our improvement efforts. And if you know my story, because they started the day out as AP Day, in every school that we went in, we looked at how to accelerate opportunities for children with AP, IB, and to fill those gaps in that were keeping children from being able to perform at optimal success. So I'm glad to be here on AP Day because I know that when you have high expectations and you build equity, access, and opportunity for children, and that you don't allow excuses to guide what you do, change can happen. And school improvement can happen for every child. Like every single child can learn, every single child can have a chance in this state if we really put our energy behind the right kinds of support, and we're ready to do that. Thank you very much.
Again, we have had a great relationship working with Dr. Thomas in his new role. We look forward to supporting him. But as we shared, we look at the three tiers, or the first three tiers. Again, is really under the preview of the Department of Education, and hopefully it is our goal that we cut that list down. We don't want any school to be labeled as a failing or underperforming school, and so we are committed to that. And I think that Ms. Johnson is well on the way to making sure that happens. But again, as I close, again, I want to thank you again for this opportunity today to be with you. Again, great things are going on across the state. Again, instead of just sharing with you just 10 minutes or so, we easily could have had 10 hours of comment that we could have added as we move forward. So we look forward to working with you. If I or the department could be of any service in the days ahead, please feel free to reach out. And Mr. Chairman Coleman, we are under the time that
Well, I'm going to do, I will take a couple of questions. If anybody has a burning question you feel you need to ask, I will take a question or two. That's it. Anyone? That's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Superintendent
Mayor.
did a good job.
Appreciate that.
All right. Thank
you.
you. Okay. All right. Okay. Someone have a question? Do you have a question? All right. One question here. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Superintendent, having a statewide view, I've had a number of parents come to me in my district and that have raised the question about this high school concern about block scheduling. And I'm sometimes a broken record on that question. I know a lot of districts have kind of experimented with that and found it to be really not good for mastering material for kids. They've kind of gone back to the traditional schedule. Do you have any good research on mastery of high school material, particularly mathematics and other classes, in block scheduling settings and in traditional, 180, in essence, block schedule being, a double long class period for 90 days versus an hour-long class period for 180 days. Do you have any research on that? Because parents have this sense that is really, really underserving kids mastering material, crunching entire classes into a semester, but they can't win the argument because they don't have the data to make the argument with. Do you have any of that data?
I would have to check. I have not seen any research other than I would say as an educator, I've worked both with a 7-period or 6-period day and also the block scheduling. Anytime you look at scheduling, there are pros and cons to either way. I think with block, one of the largest or the most beneficial things is that if you had a lab, you had more time to do with that. But also I understand that where you could take, say, your first algebra at the beginning of the year, and it may be another year and a half before you take another math class. I mean, there are things with that. But I'll check with our teaching and learning group, and if they have any research, we'll provide that to the committee.
I feel like the parents are sort of, if they're in a school district that supports block very strongly, they can't really go to the district and get the information because the district themselves are really kind of the target of being able to share this data and make the sell. But just the very fact that you would have 180 days of homework cycles versus 90 homework cycles for a math class and for language classes. There's no way to master a foreign language in half the time with the study and the vocabulary the same way with math. And parents come to me all the time, and I try to stay out of school board's business, but I thought you guys might have some statistics.
Yeah, we'll look and see what we do, but again, as I've shared, I think you're absolutely correct. One of the issues, I think, actually with block scheduling, you do lose seat time as far as the actual hours in there, so, but we'll see if we can get you some information on that.
Maybe we
If
can
there's any research.
maybe we can get with you and have you bring some people that are trying those in, and let's have a little debate. That'd be a pretty good one, I mean.
Yeah.
Thank
Okay.
you so much.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
What I want to do next now, I want you to listen very carefully. I'm going to have David Cassis come in here now and help us out just a little bit. I'm going to bring our Chief Turnaround Officer up. But last year we had a piece of legislation called House Bill 338. And in it, one of the things was to look at some of these low-performing schools. And in the low-performing schools, we had a bill that said first thing we'd do is find us a Chief Turnaround Officer. It talked about several other things that would happen. And we haven't talked that, but there was a companion bill that you may know, and I want to talk to you about it. Every committee member, you have in your folder a piece of paper that talks about this. We had a companion bill, House Bill 237, that was a funding mechanism to help pay for some of this. And I've talked with our Chief Turnaround Officer, and he said that, the money is very critical, and he's having a lot to do, and he's not finding the funds. But I want to say today, we had the bill introduced. We've had, as of right now, $5 million there. Just about $1 million has been pledged. And David, quickly, just talk about David's going to tell you what we want. I'm going to do this. I want every one of you, educators, to go out and pledge to the cause, all right? David, quickly tell them about what they got to do.
Mr. Chairman, the Senate was not granted the.
Would you? The senators all get copies. I have some extra copies, and she's going to bring every senator one. You'll have yours. So, Jennifer, you and Kaylin, be sure that every senator gets. All right, David, what's your number? All right, if you go ahead now, all right? Just a brief revised standard version.
Very good for everyone's information. The Qualified Education Donation Tax Credit is based on legislation that we've passed before on the tuition tax credit back in 2008. And basically the process is that anyone that wants to donate to whether it's to something like this with a tax credit, you basically go to the Department of Revenue, and it's very easy. You go to their website, they have a nice big where you click on it, and you fill out the form to get pre-approved. You put in the amount that you wish to donate, and the department will decide after you go through all the steps, and you'll see how the form is submitted. The department will then send you a confirmation letter of how much you were approved for. And what you do at that point is you turn around and you write a check for that amount or more. You're certainly free to give more, but that will be the tax credit amount that's been approved by the Department of Revenue. Now, for the education donation tax credit, I believe, Mr. Chairman, the check goes directly to
the Office of Student Achievement.
Correct. For the tuition tax credit, which has existed, that goes to independent SSOs, or student scholarship organizations. When you submit your donation to them, they will give you a letter confirming that you have given that. That's attached to the form, approval form you receive from the Department of Revenue. And the next year, instead of paying your state taxes, you submit that as a dollar-for-dollar tax credit.
So thank you, David. So I want to encourage everyone to read this information, go online, play with it. The Governor's Office of Student Achievement will assist you if you have any problems or concerns and help you get this done. They will be handling that. It is no administrative cost. It's dollar for dollar, and that money will be used by a Chief Turnaround Officer. And now it's my pleasure to introduce a man that I've really grown to really respect, and we were lucky to find this young man. So, Dr. Eric Thomas, if you'll start, and we're glad to have you with us today, too.
Thank you so much. I really do appreciate everyone giving me this opportunity. Chairman Brooks, Chairman Tippins, and all the House and Senate committee members, I really do appreciate this opportunity. There's two things that really has resonated so far. The excitement around the work that we're doing throughout the state, excitement around the work that we're doing in the targeted schools and the districts that we have partnered with so far. It's just really been encouraging, so really appreciated that. And the second thing I'm really excited about, just our partnership with Stephanie and her team and really the entire department. They've been absolutely fantastic. Me and Stephanie sort of joke, we're sort of like partners in crime. So we are always attempting to see how we can always provide a great opportunity for all the students within the state. I simply want to take hopefully no more than about 6 or 7 minutes, and then if there are some questions, I'll be more than happy to answer a few questions. The work that we're attempting to do is absolutely critical. And I say that coming from outside of the state. The fact that the state took this effort on, the fact that the state said that they needed to do something, I was in Bibb County earlier this week, and we had a little activity, and we talked about if you had a child that was on the other coast, and you got a phone call suggesting that there was an emergency, as a parent, what would you do? And there were lots of different answers, but absolutely everyone would do something. And we could debate about what the something should be. We can debate about the strategy. We can debate about all of those sort of things. But if our kids are in emergency status, we have to do something. House Bill 338 does something. I think my job is to make sure that that bill turns in, that we can execute on it and have the sort of return on investment that I think we're all looking for. Why is this so critical? I think it's really simple. I don't think anyone in the room is going to question that great schools create great communities. That's why it's critical. I don't think anybody's going to question. The more the educated population that we have, it's going to have a positive impact on our economy. I don't think anybody's going to question that. The third one, again, depending on where you stand, for me, I think it's about saving kids' lives. That's why this work is critical. For some of you, you may know a little bit about my background. The past 6 years, I was at the University of Virginia. There's a school turnaround program that's been in existence there for about 15 years. The program is generally considered the most recognized and successful program in the country. We work with schools in districts across the country, small districts, large districts. The partnership there is a partnership between the Curry School of Ed and the Darden Business School. So oftentimes when I have conversation, there's a little bit of a business lens that I bring to the conversation. So this idea of return on investment, this idea of cost-benefit analysis, the work that we're presently doing, roughly is going to cost us about $265 per student. If you go to an Atlanta Hawks game, if you go to an Atlanta Falcons game, a couple adults and 1 or 2 kids, you're going to spend about $500. It's about a $265 investment per year. If you start looking at what if we do not really do something special for many of these kids, sometimes you may hear me say that we're going to pay for kids now or we're going to pay for them later. It costs about $30,000 per year to incarcerate a young person. When we start multiplying that by 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, I think you get the point there. When we also look at sort of the monthly benefits, whether they're direct benefits or non-direct benefits, that as taxpayers, we end up sort of funneling to families, to students who may be a little bit more disadvantaged. Lieutenant Governor, actually Cagle, noted earlier this month, he made an incredible comment. I didn't exactly get the comment, but he sort of referred to here in the state of Georgia that economically, when a person does not graduate, there's about an $800,000 difference for a person who gets a high school diploma, does not get a high school diploma. The amount of economic investment that that person brings is about an $800,000 difference. The cost of doing nothing. And again, as I started off, this idea that the state recognized that you had to do something. There's this concept called social cost benefit analysis. So there's this concept, if we choose to do nothing, what will that look like? So we can talk dollars or we can talk about the social ills that come about when we don't educate our citizenry. We also talk about this idea of innovation and sustainability. In the work that we're doing, we're targeting a small number of schools with the idea that, yes, we're going to do great things in those schools, but we also have an opportunity to create some innovative approaches, some really creative strategies in those schools, and we can leverage those throughout the entire district. And that really becomes an opportunity to sustain the work. So it's not just turning around this 1, 2, or 3 schools, but it's having an impact on the entire district. All of this work driven by research, all of this work really focuses on a strategy. So it's not this haphazard approach of just trying a lot of stuff. It's nice to do something, but it's also really nice to do something cohesive, aligned, and strategic. 3 things that we were focusing on in the work that we've launched so far. This idea of creating partnerships. And that's partnerships with parents, with schools, with school boards, with superintendents, with faith-based organizations, health and wellness organizations, you name it. We believe that this is an all-hands-on-deck approach and that we need everybody at the table to do this incredibly difficult work. If it was simple work, I could grab one or 2 of you and we could go and handle this work. This work is so complex, so difficult. We need everyone at the table doing this work. This concept of academic needs. Over the past 10 or 15 years, particularly under No Child Left Behind, there was an incredible focus on sort of the teaching and learning, teacher capacity, leadership capacity at the school level. I'm an educator by trade. I spent 20 years in a school district, teacher, building principal. I'm absolutely sound, instructionally, education, absolutely there. And we have to acknowledge that many of our kids walk into the classroom with ills from their household that impact what happens in the classroom. If little Johnny, as a 4th grader, didn't get anything to eat last night, we should not expect him to do really well on that math test today. If 10th grade Susie saw her mother engage in some activities, and now we're expecting 10th grade Susie to do fantastic work in the classroom, we might be missing something. When you add in asthma, when you add in mental health challenges, when you add in all the other non-academic obstacles, I think we have to acknowledge the fact that that's a critical piece to the work as well. Those are the 3 pieces that really drive our work. In regards to partnerships, we just hired a young lady. She's been on the job about a week. I think she's starting to figure out, like, what the world did I get myself into? But what we're attempting to do is engage with as many stakeholders and organizations as we can. Here's just a small list. She's been on the job a week as of Tuesday. AmeriGroup has been absolutely fantastic. The Association of General Contractors, we're actually engaging with them. Again, they're throughout the state, how they can be a part of this work. The Georgia School Boards Association, we're working to figure out how school board members can understand what their role is and be a part of this work. WestEd, the National Center on School Turnaround, some of my previous work at UVA and partnerships there. The Woodrow Wilson Foundation, they've got a leadership component and they have a STEM component that we're tapping into. So some fantastic pieces there. Family Connections, Get Georgia Reading, all of those pieces are part of the work because we think all hands need to be on deck. In regards to strategy, in regards to the academic piece, Superintendent Woods and Stephanie spoke about sort of this framework that the department adopted about 6 months ago. This framework is sort of the components on the left side. When I came on board, the first thing that I did was took the research around turnaround and did a crosswalk, and that's the column on the right side. And you see very strong alignment, and it's allowing us to really move the work forward together. From a non-academic standpoint, as we focus on instruction, as we focus on talent management, as we focus on effective leadership, as we focus on the relationship between schools and districts, all the academic pieces, we have to acknowledge the fact that they're non-academic pieces. And these are just some of the areas as we work with schools and districts that we're attempting to support them in and create partnerships to support them in. In our first cohort, we identified 5 school districts and 11 schools. I wish I could say that there was some incredible opportunity that we had some forethought on around identifying these schools. We simply looked at what the data said, and the data took us to Southwest Georgia. That's what the data said. That was academic data and non-academic data. When you think about this idea of a rural focus, there's some great synergy in the state. And again, I wish I could say that we kind of knew this walking in, really by happenstance. Obviously, this whole rural focus was one of the top 10 issues that was identified earlier this month. The House's Rural Development Council has taken on this challenge. Governor Deal spoke about it in his State of the State address about really this regional airport, this regional idea about economic development and providing resources to create those opportunities. The Georgia Chamber of Commerce have what they call the Rural Renaissance. Again, there's an incredible amount of synergy around this idea of really supporting the work in those areas. In regards to possibilities for the next cohort, what does the data tell us? The data told us you've got to look in Southwest Georgia. We started there. The data told us you've got to look at Atlanta Metro. The data told us something in sort of the Augusta area and also in sort of Southeast Georgia. That's what the data is telling us. That's where we're going to be looking sometime this spring for the next set of schools and districts. As I close, we talked about strategy and focus. We start this work with a really strong look at data, a really strong look at attempting to identify the needs of schools and identify the needs of school districts. That turns into what we call as a 90-day action plan. It's not a one-year plan, it's not a 3 to 5 year strategic plan, it's a 90-day plan to provide some focus. Again, in the business world, that 90-day concept probably resonates a little bit. The team that we have, their job is to support the development of the plan, to support the execution of the plan, and to monitor the execution of the plan. That's what the job is. What are they saying as I close? This is what they're saying. As I've had an opportunity to meet with school boards, meet with superintendents, principals, they've said several things. They've talked about the absolute importance of a cohesiveness and alignment of all the pieces so that it's not this sort of haphazard approach. They've also talked about the absolute value of the non-academic focus, and that has really resonated. They've also highlighted this idea that turnaround, there's some urgency because kids are dying, but you also have to be strategic. So it's a little bit of both. Here's some direct quotes, and really excited about some of these direct quotes. Just recently, we had one of the districts, can we add another school? We had someone speak about an entire group in one of the districts. Their rallying cry was, we can do this. We had another group that really sort of highlighted that the approach that we're taking here and this idea of a partnership, they really believe that that's resonating and it's really bringing forth a level of momentum and a level of synergy that's going to go a long way. There's a lot of focus on let's get the work started. We've heard that many times. And what I'm so proud of as I close, so proud, as we went late November, early December, and had some conversation with school districts across the state and giving them opportunity to partner. There were some school districts that were not exactly ready to be partners. Earlier this month, I was just so excited, and we're actually already figuring out how this looks. But we had one of those districts that's already called back and said, if you still have room for another partner, we'd like to be a part of the work. That's really exciting, because I think people are starting to appreciate that this work not only is possible, it's strategic, it's focused, and they will own the work. I'll be more than happy to take any questions.
Hey, with what we were talking about here, I've got couple questions. I'm gonna let you answer them, but one thing we decided, you heard him talk about the before and after the school bell rings. That's we had probably one of the best summits I've ever attended, and I want to thank Sam Teasley, Representative Teasley, for setting that up, and then the people what they did it at Marietta High School. And we're talking about the homelessness, as you were saying, the abuse and all of that. And we're looking at this year with the Office of Student Achievement of providing grant money for school systems, not only the turnaround, but Stephanie, for you to have some, to let schools pilot some of these things of community involvement. So I'm really pleased with that. So we talked about that. And you heard me talk, and the reason I brought this up about tax credit, we have plenty of these forms, so you people pick them up because we want you to pledge. But we need money for that, and he can't say that. He's got to be careful, but he has to. He goes to these schools and say, who's going to pay for it? Where's the grant coming from? So I'm telling Senator Miller and the senators and all, we have a House bill. It's House bill, and I'm telling you right now, it's House Bill 728, and it's to take the sunset off about $5 million. We're getting $5 million, but we only got it for 3 years. We've already used a year. We need that off. We need this money to continue your job. Is that not correct? Don't say anything. I don't want to get you in trouble. But, Mr. Chairman, you sound like Georgia Public Broadcasting. You better believe it, baby. And you promised to help me carry it, you and Senator Tippin. But we want to do that. But Senator wanted to say something, Senator Tippin, so you can go ahead.
I told the group this morning, Brooks preaches and takes up collection. They do a good job.
How'd I get? All right, so I have a couple of people that want to ask a question, but is that, so if you would, 17, who is that? All right.
Thank you so very much for all the work, and we're really excited to continue to see the progress of the schools. One of the things I did want to bring, and not sure if you all have it on your radar, is the U Science program that's funded with DOE and so I'm pretty sure you are familiar with it, and the Technical College System of Georgia. And I think when we start looking at those bottom 5% schools, knowing that we can be able to identify their natural abilities according to career choices would definitely help motivate them, knowing that they are talented, and it doesn't matter about race and it doesn't matter about gender. So I want to know that you have that implemented into your plan.
At the moment, as far as the Technical System of Georgia, actually the young lady that we hired was actually from the Technical System of Georgia, college system, so we've definitely got that piece wrapped in. As a part of the Woodrow Wilson's work around STEM, we looked to, and I know we had the conversation about U Science, it's not a piece that we've directly embedded yet, but it's definitely a piece that we're looking to create a partnership around, because we do want to make sure that all kids have an opportunity, particularly as we move forward in the 21st century. You know, science, technology, engineering, math, that's where those jobs are, and we've got to make sure kids are able to fill those jobs. So absolutely. Thank you for that.
All right. Do I have any other questions? All right. What's your number? 9. Okay. Senator.
so much, and we're so glad that you're here. That's my statement. It's long time in coming, and while I'm making that statement, if anybody knows of a math teacher, Clay County is the teacher left, the math teacher. And these are the challenges that we have in rural Southwest Georgia. You're in my district because, you know, I'm not embarrassed to say it, because we've wanted this kind of intervention for years and years. And now that you're here, we're going to do everything that we can to work with you. But we do need a math teacher. So if anybody knows a math teacher that wants to live in Southwest Georgia, land is cheap, water's good.
Senator, we may have to put you back in the classroom. You good? You good?
Baby.
I'm gonna hire you.
Done my time.
Anyone else have a question? Okay. I just want to echo for the part of the committee. Thank you so much. We're glad you're here. This is exciting. It's exciting times. And Ms. Johnson, with you, the two of y'all, I am so glad to see the cooperation, because it's a joint effort. You need to see that no other school gets on the list. We need to see that the 150 get off the list. And so I just want to applaud y'all. I appreciate the fine job you're doing. So Mr. Woods and his staff they're doing a fantastic job helping you, and all of it's a good job. All right, next, let's go. We have this every year, and this is a great young man, a former superintendent and a great friend of education, Dr. Steve Dolinger, and he's president. And we have Dana Rickman. She's director of policy and research of the Georgia Partnership for Excellence in Education. And I think you work with that group a lot too. And they put together every year their top 10 issues. And so every one of you now got your copies. I hope you've had your copies and had a chance to look at them. So we'll turn it over to you guys right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're excited to be back again once this year. In the essence of time, I'm going to jump right in real quickly. This is our 14th edition of the Top 10 Issues to Watch. We put this out every year, and we thank you for the opportunity to be here as part of our campaign to get the information out. Each of these 10 issues, of course, they're not the only issues in Georgia, but they're 10 of the hot ones. We lay this out into 3 sections. The first is an issue overview. We do a scan of, actually a national scan and a scan of Georgia of what the issue is. Then we talk about the significance for Georgia, and we end up then with some action steps. This year we have a little different spin on this, and that's a special one of the top 10. But Dr. Dana Rickman is the person who oversees the writing and publication of this, so I'll let her quickly go through this. Chairman Coleman suggests we take 6 or 7 minutes for each of these. No, I'm just teasing. We're only going to talk about 2 or 3 of them very quickly, but we'll be glad to answer some questions. Dr. Rickman?
Thank you, and thank you for the invitation to present here today. And you have the books in front of you, and I just very briefly want to hit each of the 10 to describe what's in them, and then we can talk in more detail. The first one, which I will talk about in more detail in just a minute, is called EdQuest Georgia. One of the things that the partnership has been working on over the past 2 years is a policy framework based on best practices of high-performing states and nations. And what are the policies that all of those countries and high-performing nations have in common? And then where does Georgia stack up compared to those with benchmarking? And so this first issue really looks at where we are strong as a state policy-wise and where we have opportunities. I believe that you've received another insert from the EdQuest Georgia project, which highlights across each of those areas some alerts where we need immediate policy action done. Yield means we need to proceed with caution. I mean, we have the policy, but maybe it needs more time to develop, more funding, things of that nature. And go, green, we're strong, we're a national leader, let's keep supporting it. The second issue is equity and fairness, the opportunity to succeed. It's something we talk about a lot at the partnership and we hear a lot about across Georgia, is the opportunity for success. It undergirds all of our issues in Georgia. The third issue, the early learning workforce, a challenge for Georgia. One of the things that we are passionately concerned about is equitable access to high quality early learning, and part of that is supporting the workforce. We're very proud that Georgia's 25th anniversary of the Georgia Pre-K program is this year, and over that past quarter of decade we've really professionalized the pre-K workforce. And so what can we learn to professionalize the 0 to 3 workforce? What kind of resources will that take, and really looking at high quality early learning. The fourth issue, teachers, leadership from the classroom. This is a relatively new area in Georgia, but talking about teacher leadership and how do we keep our best teachers in the classroom, but also provide them a career pathway and ownership. And as we've heard from Chief Turnaround Officer, and high quality teaching and being bought into the process is one of the keys for success. Issue 5, the missing 20%, increasing Georgia's high school graduation rate. It was exciting for a lot of us that our high school graduation rate tipped over 80% this year, so that was really great. That remaining 20% though is a really tough nut to crack. And looking at who are these children and why are they harder to get across the graduation line? Do they have lots of absenteeism? Are they involved with DJJ? Are they foster care students? What is it going to take to serve our neediest students and get them where they need to be? You want to take some?
Issue number 6, Georgia's talent gap. You may have heard the Georgia Chamber that as they were doing their 2030 strategic planning sessions across the state, we kept having a conversation that there are a lot of jobs out there for people who want to have those jobs. They just don't have the right education. So that's that gap that we've got to close and make sure we have more people that have at least a 2-year degree and if possible a 4-year degree to get the talent we would have to be able to fill those gaps. Number 7, the literacy. We've been working with the Literacy Action Group this year, the Georgia Chamber and the partnership. Been looking at the research. It's not just that early learning piece. We know that Get Georgia Reading campaign, you've heard about that over and over again, strong piece of the puzzle, but it's also that adult literacy. Then we get into the multi-generation issue. So we've got to focus on that to make sure that people are ready to learn by 3rd grade. They can read so they can learn after 3rd grade. But then also our adults who haven't been able to establish those skills, we can go back and get them into the queue. The student health piece, it's interesting that the partnership gets pushed on more and more frequently now, as Mr. Thomas was talking about, to talk about those other issues outside the classroom. It's not our core competency, but we felt that it's time to raise that up as a stronger issue. So that's here. We know there's too many counties in Georgia that have no doctor, that have no dentist, have no psychologist. In fact, when we were on the road with the Georgia Chamber this year up in North Georgia, one of the counties there said that a student that they had thought might have some special education needs, it took them extra months to get a schedule with a psychologist in the neighboring school system because they didn't have a psychologist, to get that psychological exam, to even start that process to see if that kid could really get some services. So those are issues. The next one is really important, the rural Georgia issue. You've also heard Superintendent Woods talk about that. You had a study committee this summer. It's focusing on that. I'm sure there'll be some legislation, but we're holding that up as not just a business issue, but also an education issue, that we have to look at the rest of Georgia. There are too many of our counties that are losing population. It's not just Metro Atlanta, it's the hub. We've got to work with all of our counties across the state. And then the last one is the Every Student Succeeds Act. Superintendent Woods said the feds have given us the green light on that. What we're holding up here is the real need to make sure we put a spotlight on that and track the fidelity of implementation, make sure we're doing that as well as possible in Georgia.
And I just want to take a minute for the first issue, the core policy areas. As I said, for the past 18 months, 2 years, we've been doing a really deep dive into the best practice research around what are the common policy levers that all high-performing states and nations have. And they really break down into these 7 buckets. Foundations for learning, quality teaching, quality leadership, supportive learning environments. We hear a lot about that. We've heard a lot about that today. That's not just within the classroom, within the school, but the neighborhoods as well. And what do the neighborhoods and the families look like for the students who are learning? Advanced instructional systems, clear pathways to post-secondary success, and adequate and equitable funding. And again, I encourage you all, not only in the top 10, but also at EdQuest Georgia GA really highlights where Georgia really is a national leader in a lot of these areas, particularly things like CTAE and our Move On When Ready programs are really very strong. But there are areas that we can learn from our friends and neighbors who are doing very well and opportunities to make us better.
We would suggest that you use these in your campaigns this year. We're voluntarily talking to a lot of candidates, anyone who would like to. And as Dr. Rickman said, where it's green, it's kind of leave that alone. We have some really good policy in Georgia. Focus your education campaigns on the other areas, particularly the red. That's where you have to make some difference. It's great. As Superintendent Woods said, we can finally get rid of that brand that we're last. We're in the middle of the pack. We want to stay. We don't want to stay there. We want to move up. So these are kind of the roadmaps, the blueprints for us moving even further ahead.
Anyone have a question? Okay. Number 3, all right.
Mr. Chairman, appreciate your presentation. I appreciate your saying us being in the middle of the pack. There's this kind of this vernacular around Georgia that we're the last in education, and we're not, although there's much we can do. A previous governor talked about, and I want to ask you to comment on this, that we know as a state and as a nation we're struggling with certain groups, and we're Latinos are not performing like we would like to have Latinos perform across the age ranges. We know we want to close the achievement gap with African Americans, and we know we are all committed to that. If you looked at Georgia and you disaggregated different groups, is there one group in particular we ought to be doing better with, that we ought to focus on? I'm concerned that sometimes there's sort of this, we need to do all things better, and sometimes just as the solution in rural Georgia might be very different than urban Georgia in a Title I school, that the solutions might be different depending on who we're looking at. Where do you think we need to focus most of our effort?
We touch on some of that in the top 10, but where we really hit that hard is in our economics of education presentations. We're coming out with the 5th edition of that next month, but we still do presentations to the Georgia Academy of Economic Developers. We just did the Georgia Municipal Association. They actually asked for a 3-hour class on the economics of education. We hit that really hard. The 2 fastest growing groups of students in our state are those who speak English as a second language and those who live in poverty. Those are 2 groups who graduate from high school at the lowest rate. So those are the groups, particularly kids who live in poverty, that we have to put the spotlight on, look at the data and see where in the pipeline that they're struggling. And as Dr. Thomas was saying, those are groups we have to focus on if we really want to make some changes in Georgia.
And I hear that, Mr. Chairman, I asked the question because we had a superintendent, I believe it was the Turner County superintendent, who had taught before in DeKalb and is now a superintendent in a rural area. And they're both Title I areas, that you've got low-income families, but the transiency in the metro area is debilitating. Yes. But in these rural areas, there's no transiency at all, but there's a different kind of a dynamic that undermines their achievement. And I was really moved by that testimony, and have we lasered in not just on poverty, but the dynamics in these kinds of communities and in those kind of communities? Because my gut tells me there's different interventions for those 2 different needs. Although they could be couched under poverty, there might be 2 very different solutions to them.
I think you're absolutely correct, and unfortunately, there's not an easy answer for that. There's no, oh, this is the thing that's gonna, if you focus on that group, that's gonna fix that. I think it is very complicated. One of the things we tried to highlight with the EdQuest Georgia work is that all 7 of these policy levers have to be working together and highly functioning together. And if any one of them gets off, the whole thing just stops. And I think in terms of actual solutions, it varies dramatically depending on where you are, depending on what your population looks like. What's going to work in rural Georgia is going to be very different than what's going to work in even southern DeKalb County. And so what we tried to do is put out policy frameworks that's sort of like the framework of a house, like a blueprint. Like you have to have a floor, walls, ceilings, but all of the, what color is the carpet, what particular programming do you need for your school, where are your strengths, where are your weaknesses, that is all going to vary by where you are. And that's why our flexibility and local control is very important, to allow communities to really assess where they're strong, where they're weak, and what kind of additional resources do they need to shore up their weak points.
Another analogy is that Johns Hopkins University has done some really good work on why students tend to fall out of school, and they call it the ABCs, and it sounds like it might be easy. It's attendance, behavior, and course credit. But your point, sir, is that at attendance, for example, the problem of attendance could be quite different in the city of Atlanta than it might be in Randolph County. So you have to get in to see what is the root cause of those issues in those local school systems. And like Dana said, if it were really easy, we'd have solved it a long time ago.
Because, Mr. Chairman,
one more, yeah. Go ahead. No, go ahead. I'm going to take it.
My concern is it's hard to execute these things. If you know exactly what it is we need to do, it's still hard to execute and make that happen. Yeah. I'm concerned we've not defined what the it is we need to go address in a way that's laser focused. If we can't name it, this is the solution for this, or this is a set of interventions, because it's complicated. I'm concerned we still haven't gotten our hands around what we need to be doing, Mr. Chairman. So.
One thing I thought it was interesting that Dr. Thomas said, you know, the fact that they get into the data, they got to find that out. That's what he said. All right, we'll come back. All right, number 27. That's Yeah, Representative Belden.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I really appreciate, I've done a lot of study about some of the countries that beat us in the nations like Singapore, Finland, Japan. They concentrate on not on quality tests, but they concentrate on quality teachers. So I'm very glad that you number 4, you talk about teacher leadership. So what can we do in Georgia to enhance the profession, to create more retention, to improve morale for these teachers?
To put it in business terms, sir, that you understand quite well, it's typical HR functions of recruiting, training, and retaining. And we do some of those well, but part of that recruiting and retention is how much we pay our teachers. And the other countries you mentioned, they pay them a lot more. We know in Georgia right now that welders down in Savannah could be making $80,000 a year. A starting teacher makes half that.
The person who lifts the crates off the ships and put them on the trucks, they told us start about 90,000. That's interesting, isn't it? Yeah, and they just need to know how to do a joystick. Any other question? Take one more. All right. Thank you so much. This is always a pleasure, and I encourage people to visit you and get to know you, and we'd maybe have you come back sometime, and I'd like to get you with Representative Sessler and get some debate going, because that's a good point I think you made, and get Chief Dr. Thomas with you too. I think that's something we'd like to look at. I may even appoint a subcommittee to look at that, because that's something I think with the wraparound services is going to be critical. It's going to be critical.
Mr. Chairman, these documents can be found on our website at gpee.org.
And everyone got a copy, and you have an extra copy now, so share it with someone.
Thanks,
Thank
sir.
you. That's very, very special to us, and that's Georgia Public Broadcasting. Where's our next presenter? They here? It's Tanya Ryan. Hold your hand up where I know you're here. Did they show up? All right, you'll be featured tonight on Georgia Public Broadcasting, this show, so you can watch. Are they here? Well, we told, okay, so hey, we're moving ahead. All right. Next, Kimberly Boyd. Where's Kimberly? All right, you're next. So come on up. Kimberly is talking with us about International Baccalaureate. Now, people, this is critical because I had a lot of questions this morning. Advanced placement, and you're from North Hall High School, I think, and you're talking about AP successes in and outside the classroom. Is that correct? Inside and outside. All right, good. Do we have your presentation up here?
Yes, you have a copy. I can use the thumb drive.
If you show us, is it, where we get an idea?
You have slides.
Is this it?
Yes, sir.
All right, right here. Okay. This one sheet, the one sheet, all right? Okay.
Nope.
Huh? Be loaded. Oh.
Okay, so Chairman Coleman, Chairman Tippins, thank you for having us. Committee members, my name is Kimberly Boyd. I'm the International Baccalaureate Advanced Placement Coordinator, and I have the privilege of advising kids on all the advanced curriculums that are available to our students at North Hall High School and within the county that we have. So I also want to say that North Hall High School brought the state wrestling dual championship back the other weekend for 3A. So my son's on the team, so I kind of had to celebrate just a little. Yeah. Well, at a duel, we did beat the 6A and 7A people, so I think we're in good company. Thank you so much. So this is the promotional slide that I provide my students and let them see kind of like a quick snapshot of what they have available for them within AP. So we first have like just the regular brick and mortar courses that we offer with language and literature and so forth. But we also celebrate the fact that Bob Swigum has put together a great Georgia virtual opportunity for our students that I can't provide every curriculum within my school. So sometimes I say, hey, we can put you online and you can do it through Georgia Virtual, You know, you can take AP Human Geography, you can do AP, you know, any of the other classes that we don't offer, brick and mortar. Or if their schedule doesn't align with what we offer, they have that afforded to them through Georgia Virtual. So I really think it's important that we continue funding that and that good work that's going on there. I know our history classes are going really well. We have found great success with that. Computer science, we're still trudging through for consistency, but thank you so much for providing that as well. So the big things that I want to cover, I've talked a little bit about our offerings, but the fact that I think we need to really expand our communication about what prepares students for college. We talked about, you know, they're taking the harder, riskier path of doing AP or IB, and that really prepares them for college. But then I have parents that will argue, well, my child's doing dual enrollment, that is college. But then they want to transfer to a larger university and they don't find the same success. So I really think it's important for us to be able to communicate what really is best for Johnny and Sally and take them in on an individual basis to advise them on what is the best fit. And a lot of times it could be, I have students that do all three. I have students that do a combination of the two, or I have full diploma candidates for IB. So we have an expansive opportunities provided to us in our county and throughout the state. Where we talked about AP getting credit and IB too in the university system, that again, of course, is that partnership that we need to create with the university system of Georgia and the technical colleges of what that looks like. What a 3 looks like on your campus. If my child, I mean, it's standardized. You know, AP has, this is the curriculum for AP US History. It's the same in Gainesville. It's the same as it is in Jonesboro. It's the same as it is in Clay County. So that curriculum is the same. If the child scores a 3, then they should be able to go to the university and have some kind of recognition for that skill set that they've shown. AP increases graduation rates. Superintendent Woods commented that it's 98%. One class, a student takes one AP class and it increases their graduation rate 98%. So that's, I mean, and that's not even, hey, you have to pass the class. It's not, you have to pass the test. It's, you are experiencing an advanced curriculum and finding some kind of success either with you in academics, so you realize, hey, I can do this. And I can tell you the teacher capacity within both and all of these curriculums is exponentially different. These teachers go through particular training to teach these classes, and they inspire kids. And that's really what we want to see in all of our classes. When it comes to AP funding, you know, we talk about the tests and whether or not you funded one test for every student, whether you fund low socioeconomic students get a test for free, or now we're concentrating on the STEM, which makes it very difficult for a coordinator to try and figure out all the math on how that works with all the dynamics in my classroom. But I'm willing to do that if that's what's best for kids. But I see that there's fewer of my low socioeconomic students having the opportunity to have a free assessment.
What you're saying is it's not best for kids based on your experience?
I don't think it's serving as many kids as it did prior. When it comes to gifted students, I also, next to that, there's a proposal from my county, my school superintendent, Will Schofield, Dr. Sally Crisell, who is the national gifted president, and then also Dr. Ecke, who is advanced learning and innovative technologies for our curriculum in Hall County. They have proposed this for gifted funding because of the waivers that are available to them. So please, I know you're probably aware of that. It looks like this. If you would look over that, that is a proposal because these are kids that are getting funded that are going to experience AP classes because many of our AP classes are funded, gifted. Our IB classes are funded, gifted because we have these students in our classes. So I think it's important to make sure that we provide the education and so forth with all of that. So I also propose that to you as well. The big reflections and takeaways, AP, IB, and dual enrollment are equal credit. Our county has said that they are the same. We all know that they're not the same, and that's okay. What we need to be the same is that we're communicating that they're all exemplary programs for certain kinds of kids. And that if you're an AP kid, you might not be an IB kid. And if you're a dual enrollment kid, you might not be an AP kid. And that's okay. But there needs to be an understanding that there is goodness and quality in all of those formats. That right now with a lot of the legislation, I have parents coming to me saying, hey, dual enrollment, it's free college. Yeah, it's free college, but will your child be prepared for that next step? The only time that we have seen dual enrollment really graduate you faster is if you matriculate into the same university that you were doing dual enrollment with. Where with AP and IB, it goes up to 84, 92% because you are participating in those advanced curriculums. So you can still get credit, but you have a higher rate of success once you're at that university. Key thoughts, opportunity. Like I said, opportunity, you have to guide students to their best fit. Like you mentioned, use science. It's a great way that we can, my son did it, he found great resources with that. Being able to see what their best fit is. And really you wonder, are we providing the monies to have the personnel to guide those students? Do we need to funnel it into a program, or do we need to funnel it into personnel that can guide students to those programs? Students always are first. So, and I know that that's in your forefront. I've heard that repeatedly this afternoon. Our statistics, you know, I mentioned to one of the representatives earlier today, I said, you can't not say that our kids aren't successful. I have 100% early action acceptance for UGA and Georgia Tech for my IB students, which that isn't full diploma because typically they're IB and they take AP classes. Few of them do dual enrollment as well, but if they have IB on their transcript, that's 100% acceptance early action. That makes you more eligible for college, scholarships, honors colleges, all of those types of things. So exposure to those advanced curriculums really does make a difference. Partnerships, collaboration, I can't stress that between the University System of Georgia, the Regents, Board of Regents, and the technical schools, and you, and all of these different groups that are here represented to talk and speak to what is the best fit. It can't be a quick solution. It needs to be a continuing conversation where, you know, I understand that it's like, oh, well, we need to meet this, and it's a quick Band-Aid. But if you just make an instant law for a valedictorian, you know, there's a huge ripple effect. So you have to understand that, you know, it can't be a quick fix. It needs to be a continuing conversation, and I understand there's urgency, but I appreciate you listening to all of the voices that are present and continuing to listen. And if you have any questions, please.
You have a couple questions. One thing that's been interesting, I think, I look at we were saying, yeah, because we've been talking about this all week, just what you're talking about. If you heard me this morning, when I spoke to the group, I said, I'm tired of people talking to me in educational jargonese. Talk to me in Duluthanese where I can understand what's going on. And I think one of the concerns I've had is the confusion. I mean, really. And I've been shocked as we've met these groups that teachers, don't understand. I mean, the difference in AP. And you made the point for the college. You take that wherever you want to go. They don't understand about the dual enrollment. They're gaming it for the money and
hope
and
because
the hope
they can
and all
get
this
a
stuff.
GPA that's
and
higher.
they're hoping they're through in the 4 years and don't have to pay a dime. That's what they're looking at. So this is a great topic. But Senator Miller is going to bring us bring it to a great point. I know he has some good ideas on this. So, Senator?
He wants something. I have a question for you. We just went through an audit on dual enrollment, and there's some issues in the program which have been pointed out, which is good.
Mhm.
My question to you is, because they don't emanate from Georgia, AP, International Baccalaureate programs, who audits these people? For example, I've had some criticisms of perhaps the curriculum in some of the programs, bias maybe in some of the programs. Obviously, it's a national program, as you said. But that being said, who is watching these programs to make sure that they're what we want to be doing here in Georgia? We've got an audit now on the dual enrollment program. So we know some areas that we think we need to strengthen, and hopefully we will have the will to do that. But what do we do? Do we just accept what we get on the AP classes? Do we just accept what we get on the International Baccalaureate? Do we, are they, other than the fact that they've been there forever?
Well,
it's sort of like really with the SAT, ACT.
Since like 1968.
That's
so
exactly right.
they've been a while.
Right.
But they monitor themselves. I get reports
I
from
understand
them.
that.
I give a lot of feedback, and
Okay.
they have lots of committees, and even with AP as well. AP provides lots of communities of teachers where I hear more from teachers and educators and things like that of like how do you think this is working? When new curriculum comes out, they don't just say, hey, we have a new curriculum, we're doing this instead. They get a team of teachers together to say, what's the feedback? What's the data saying? I mean, it's literally data driven. They look at, say, okay, so we see that our kids are having a lot of trouble with this. Well, how do we compose a test that evaluates what we're doing in the curriculum? So they really collaborate with the teachers that are actually, teaching the class in the classroom and saying, this is what works, this is what doesn't. And IB does the same thing. I mean, you have to go through training, and we go through training from different individuals, but then I collaborate. We have IBGA, we have AP coordinators throughout the state, we go to forums, we do boards. I mean, so we are constantly in professional learning and talking to each other about how to improve the curriculum, what is best about the curriculum, what needs to change. And all of those, both of them have open door policies on criticism.
So you do feel that you all actually, because we don't have any control over it.
Right.
Obviously, and that was my question. Do you all think that you are getting changes and improvements and based upon input locally to these people? You do. You do feel it. Okay.
Yes.
That's what I was curious about. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you for that presentation. Can you get me? I was looking in this book, and if I'm reading this right, it says only 22% of graduating class earns a 3 or higher on AP exams. That's pretty low.
Yeah.
And so when you're a student or a parent, and you say, student, take an AP, and you might not get any credit for it, might pull your grade down, and you go look at Move On When Ready class at a college next door, it's tough. I mean,
it's a tough sell.
Yeah, it's a tough sell. So
And to that, I mean, I have students that play the field, and I'm like, and that comes into the guidance component.
Okay.
Like, I had some students who were like, hey, Miss Boyd, you told me I needed to go take an AP class. So I did AP Physics, and I was like, what? As your first AP class? Dude, let's look at your schedule. that's probably not your best fit. And that's advisement. You can't just have kids go in and sign up for a class. It's kind of like, okay, we know you're really good at writing. Maybe we should do AP language or a history class. But I'm not going to put you in AP physics or AP chemistry, as your first AP class. So a lot of it, like I said, sometimes you need to put money in the personnel to be able to say, this is what you really need to be doing.
Thank you.
Very good. And, of course, one thing that I think has really spiked, like I've never seen it, is a senator was saying that they did the audit. We were concerned about students taking 5 or 6 years to finish college, and the governor, says we need to, and I believe they need to get out.
Yes.
It was hope. And of course, that's where we was talking about the dual enrollment, because double funding, and that thing is doubling and tripling as far as cost. It's going to go out of the ceiling. We can't continue. But they're gaming it. I mean, and that's the concern I have in the schools. I'm wondering sometimes if the counselors and if they're really being advised, the parents, because I can tell you in my district, I have a population, some people, and they're gaming it, buddy. You will take those courses and you will graduate with and paid for, the 2 years. Yeah.
Well, and what's nice about AP courses and IB also is that you get the college experience in the 4 walls of your high school.
Your own high school, yeah.
I mean, you get to be a high school student. Sometimes some kids, and that's where the advisement comes in. Some kids don't need to walk onto a college campus.
No.
As a sophomore or a junior. Right. So those are all advisement pieces as well. So.
We're going to take one more question, then we're going to move on. 25.
Quick one.
Yes, ma'am.
Would you agree with me that we need more school counselors who are doing that appropriate advising?
I opened up the candle.
You did.
Yes.
That's that wraparound service we need. Thank you so much for that being here. We appreciate that.
Yeah, I did.
All right. Next, we have 3 more presenters, and I won't stick with us, but I know some have got to get. If Bruce is here, Bruce. Let me get it. Let's get that right now. Shabazz, did I get it right?
Yes, sir.
Hey, I got it right. Okay, good. Now, Bruce, I think I met you earlier. And,
yes, sir.
So you're on. Okay, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Chairman, Senators, Representatives. Thank you very much for inviting me. My name is Bruce Shabazz. I'm a soldier who currently works for the College Board. We're very honored to be here to talk to you today. I'm going to talk specifically about military-connected children and the AP program and how it impacts them. So when we talk military-connected children, in 2015, the Department of Defense estimated that there were 80,175 military-connected children living in Georgia of all ages. Add on top of that, then there are retirees or veterans with their children who also live here. So it's a pretty large community of children. This is a very transient population. It oftentimes has been in 4 to 6 schools. It's not uncommon for a high schooler to be in 2 different. And I had many of my friends when I served in the Army whose children were in 3 and 4 different high schools. And so the AP program is particularly important to those children. First and foremost, I think it's because of the continuity in the program, as was discussed. If you're coming from California or Japan or Europe to here in Georgia, and you come in and you've had AP pre-calculus, you can transition easily into calculus, and there's no one questioning whether your readiness for that, you are ready for that. It's straightforward. Oftentimes with other programs, it can be called into question, and those individuals can take a step back and have to repeat education that they've already had. So the AP program provides great continuity as they move between schools. Second off is the issue of credit policies. Very important for there to be transparent, generous credit policies at the university level for military students, because they may not have spent their whole 4-year high school career here in Georgia. They may be coming in from another location. And we would like for them to get credit for those educational opportunities that were provided to them prior to their arriving here, as well as those schools, the classes that they took once they were here. because military children are generally untethered, when they look for a school, it doesn't have to be where they graduate. They're used to moving. And so if there isn't the opportunity for them to get the credit that they've earned here in Georgia, they may very well choose to go somewhere else for their education and receive that credit. Also, if you're serving in Katina, Japan, for example, it's really hard to take a weekend and do a campus visit. And so having those transparent policies that are well advertised really can make them the distinction for whether they choose one school or another, is what is the credit that they will receive for that. The third point that I would like to make is access. And the department, or the General Accounting Office in DC did an audit of military schools, and in it they found that 24% of the students were eligible for free or reduced price lunches. As I look at it from the military pay grade perspective, that means that a staff sergeant with 2 children and a spouse is eligible for that assistance. Oftentimes, they don't realize that they're eligible for that. And within the military culture, there's also a stigma against accepting that opportunity. If you're a squad leader in the Ranger Regiment and someone tells you that you're not making enough money, you'd rather chew your arm off than accept welfare. So having that opportunity provided in a transparent manner to them provides their first generation college-bound children an opportunity that they may not otherwise get, and that the parents may not know the value of and be able to help them get it as well. Those are the 3 primary points. I'd like to briefly talk, Senator, you brought up the issue of who looks at. Not my particular specialty, but I've been involved in some of this. There's about 8,000 members. We are a member organization of high schools and colleges. 8,000 members, those folks do provide. We make mistakes on occasion, and we are more than willing to relook those things, and we have in the past. You'll see in our American government, we've moved more towards founding documents as one of the foundational aspects, because we realized we shifted away from that. Yeah, that was a major criticism. And again, as a soldier, I look at the process that they have in this organization, and I'm very impressed that they're willing to look at these things. They do their best. They get feedback from committees, but sometimes committees create camels when they meant to create a horse. And we're more than happy to go back and take a look at those things. So that concludes my comments.
Okay.
I'm happy to
Any
take
questions? Don't see any. Thank you so much for your comments. I enjoyed getting to know you earlier
Thank you,
today.
sir.
All right, our last 2 presenters, I'm going to ask them to come up if they would. Eric, I want to get this right. Arena, did I get it right? Yes, sir. And Superintendent of Putnam County Schools, and also have Alan McCannon, Superintendent of Madison County, and they're going to talk about the Charter System Foundation. Now, this is important if you understand your charter systems. It's the Charter System Foundation. Is that correct, sir? You're talking. And on your paper, it says you're talking about charter schools. It's not charter schools. It's charter systems. And there is a difference. That's right. Okay. You're on.
Chairman, thank you, and committee, thank you for being here. I could talk for about 2.5 hours about what we're doing in Putnam County, but instead turn the lights off of Putnam. Oh, okay. Well, instead, I'll leave you that.
There you go.
That brochure, and then I'll begin. Putnam County, Rock Eagle, Lake Oconee, for those of you that aren't familiar with us. But in Putnam County, we've been partnering with a professor from the University of Georgia to implement an innovative, state-of-the-art formative assessment system. The system is designed to classify students as a master or non-master of standards using an assessment with as few as 8 questions. The standards-based classification will be psychometrically reliable and valid, and the system is using psychometric methodology that was pioneered through a recent research at the University of Georgia and is not currently available in a standards level assessment system sold by any testing vendor or company. The questions on the assessments are being written by top experts across our state, and these experts are experienced classroom teachers who are now leaders in curriculum and instruction across the state. The group includes past state-level curriculum directors and past presidents of statewide professional teacher groups. They are the best of our state's best. We strongly believe these are the experts who should be leading the question development of assessments in our schools. As districts, our only alternatives currently are to write questions in-house or turn to testing companies who sell the same tests or question banks to schools all over the country. They rearrange the questions for specific states without strong attention to state-specific interpretations or intentions on state-level standards. Our primary goal is to support student learning by giving timely feedback to our teachers and students about which standards students understand and which they do not understand yet. We plan to provide feedback to our teachers value and can trust, and we want to shift the emphasis in assessment in this state from who knows more than who to who has mastered what, so that we can provide additional support for our students who have not yet mastered standards. In our district, students who do not yet understand standards are provided additional instruction and allowed to retest up to 2 times to demonstrate mastery of the standards. We use the percentage of standards masters per subject as one of our promotion criteria. This is an example of how a district may flexibly use the results of the system, but of course, that is not required. Our long-term goal is that for this formative assessment system to be the cornerstone of the state of Georgia's accountability system. Our premise is that the summative testing at the end of the school year is mostly redundant with information we have already been collecting throughout the school year, and we'll be able to report the percentage of standards for which students have demonstrated mastery. We view this report as more informative and accountable for accountability purposes than a single score from an end-of-the-year test that requires students to sit too long for periods of time to take the test. We believe the end-of-year assessments contain significant errors from student stress due to the high stakes of a single assessment and the overload of assessing multiple subjects at the same time at the end of the year. The assessment system is also expected to cost less than what the testing companies offer, and there is still considerable time for resources that goes into developing these questions, managing the platform, and conducting all of the analysis and quality control. However, keeping costs down is a priority as well. We are truly innovating in terms of creating something new from the ground up in 3 ways, and I want to leave you with these 3 things. The tests that we're creating are not traditional. We're using a diagnostic method that research has shown works, but the method is not transferred from research into practice until now. The last 3 years, partnering with a leader in this diagnostic method at the University of Georgia, combined with the philosophy of what we've been doing for the past 8 years, with the diagnostic methods to meet all the criteria needed for accountability, truly a paradigm shift in education. 2, the tests are much smaller. They measure few standards at a time so that the language of the teacher and the standards of the language is the feedback that teachers can use. These students have mastered these standards, or these students have not mastered these standards. There is not an off-the-shelf system to purchase today that will tell you or us, our teachers, whether students have mastered or non-mastered at the standard level. Tests on demand. The third most important thing is that it's modular and it can be given on demand, and that there are no testing windows. Imagine that we test our students in the state of Georgia when they're ready to be tested, and not everybody has to be on the same testing schedule. So that they're not equally spaced out. Different districts do not have to give them exactly at the same time, and feedback to teachers and students and parents is immediate. A very powerful model where school needs and assessment standards are finally in sync. We've begun a pilot program, and we've actually invited other school districts around the state to be part of that pilot with us. We are now, of course, we're a small district of only 3,000 students or fewer. We have partnered with 3 other districts, and we're also talking to some legislators about the possibility of creating space in our current law that would allow us a window of time to truly vet this process. So as a charter system, innovation at work, Chairman.
Yeah. Any questions? One thing I want to say as a former first grade reading teacher, Scott Forsman, that's exactly what it was. That's exactly what it was, the formative testing. You test them every day and move children constantly. And I'm glad, and this is something y'all are developing, is that correct? Are you purchasing this?
No, sir, this is not purchased, this is what we're developing.
You're developing, that's what's good. Self-developed, teachers can use it. And you use it K3 or where you using it? K-12 or where are you using it?
K-12, yes.
K-12 in all subject areas?
Yes, sir.
Very good, very good. I like that. Because one thing I'm hearing is we travel the state over, teachers feel they are tested to death. And
Correct.
we've got to get a hold of what's the right thing to do. And I agree with you. So I commend you. And under your flexibility, are you getting a grant to do this or?
No,
From the
sir.
charter?
This is because we believe this is what's right for kids. We believe this is what's best for teachers in our profession. We have to rearrange our resources in order to accomplish this ourselves.
It's wonderful. Good. Very good. You need to look at the Office of Governor's Office of Student Achievement, see if you can get a grant to help you out. This is wonderful.
Martha Ann Todd, before she left, has been down there to Eatonton to speak with us. We've had some wonderful conversations. I look forward to the opportunity to potentially
Yes,
partner with others or ask answer any specific questions on it.
Yeah, pledge your money to the $5 million, get the sunset off, and you got your money. There you go. All right, you're next. I'm sorry. No, I appreciate it. That's where we ought to go. You're right on target with where I think we ought to go in testing. I appreciate it. How about you, Joyce? Don't you agree with that? Yeah, that's where you ought to be. I commend you. All right, where you ought to be. All right.
My name's Alan McCann, and I'm superintendent of the Madison County School System, and also chair for the Charter Foundation. I want to quickly, Dan Weber, Pam Talmadge for the Charter Foundation are here in the crowd. Appreciate everything they do. They're making a difference for kids. My purpose here today is to tell you why charter system's important. And I want to tell you that we're using flexibility, and you see an example from my good friend Eric Arena right here. We're trying to save lives using flexibility. I think there's two questions that may be in your mind today. That's my job, is trying to anticipate the questions. First thing, why the money? Well, if you really listen, that question's already been answered today, because Chairman Coleman said money is a sensible way to say I love you. And then also, if you really think about turnaround schools, what do you need? You need funds, okay? So there's only 43 of 181 school systems in Georgia that are charter systems. It's a lot of work. So that goes to tell you that, yes, you get money, but there's a lot of hard work that goes with that. Training is a critical piece. Let me tell you why parents do not get involved, because we use too many acronyms in education, and we talking about EIP, IEPs, all PBIS, HUT, ready, and they're lost. They don't know what we're talking about. So what we do with charter systems, the first thing we do is we train our parents. We did something this fall. We brought our Board of Education together. We brought all our governance team members from all our schools. We got together and we trained them. We fed them. And so that's how you do it. First of all, you got to understand what's going on if you're going to be an equal team member. I tell you what's happening, what we hope's happening, our first governance team member is now a Board of Education member. We hope that governance teams will be a way that if you want to become a Board of Education member, and as you know, Board of Education members are very important. Talk to superintendents, we'll tell you afterwards. They're very important. Now we have a training ground for people to become Board of Education members by being on a school governance team. Let me tell you something, innovation costs. If you were in charge, we were a company, and you said, okay, we're going to get together and we're going to create a department, and you're in charge of innovation, but your budget's zero. I don't think you're going to get innovation cost, okay? I'm going to try to give you a few examples, because I know I'm last on the agenda, and I know I'm between you and the highway.
No.
But listen, ag mechanics. Okay, we were going to get ag mechanics classroom. We have Caterpillar is 2 counties away from us. We talked to Caterpillar. We said, hey, we want to work with you. They said, hey, this is how we need to design your classroom so that it's a real life experience for kids, so when they come to industry. But guess what? It did not fit the DOE model. But you know what the DOE did? Say, hey, you're a charter system. We're going to give you flexibility. We're going to allow you to work with Caterpillar. You know what happened? Caterpillar gave us some equipment. But not only did Caterpillar do that, they gave us 5 internships every year. Our kids go through a process. They apply for a job. They work at this company. Innovation And flexibility leads to real changes for students. I'll give you an example where all our monies that we take from our charter system, we go through our school governance teams. Forever, our middle school parents have been saying, we want an after-school program. You still need one in middle school. We want to extend we want Spanish as a second language. We want this, we want that. But every time it would bog down. But guess what? When we had a governance team and they had some funds, guess what happened? Tell me what happened. We have an after-school program in middle school now. And thank you for those funds. You've got to be willing. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to brag on the boards of education for these 43 systems. You got to be willing to disseminate your power. And that's what's happening. And if you train people and disseminate your power, good things are going to happen. I'm going to give you a couple of quick, how is flexibility saving lives? Let me give you an example. You know, at elementary level, there's regular education. Then if there's early intervention programs, kind of remedial. Then there's special ed. Well, those lines are rigid, okay? Well, what happens is kids don't come to us at a line. They might be strong here, weak here. This is what Mr. Arena's trying to get at. So what we do, we serve by need, not by label. When we do our progress monitoring, you might have a child that's in EIP, but they might need a severe, intensive intervention at the tier 4 or special education level. So now, that child doesn't have that label, they cannot receive those services. We're a charter system. Guess what? Now they get what they need. You know, we have an APP program. I could go into it real quick, but let me tell you an example of charter system. It's for MI kids who we still want them to get a diploma. We still want them to go to Athens Technical College. We want them to get higher training, and their IQs are a little low. So I had a student that her IQ was just a little bit too high. She couldn't get in what now? Mildly intellectual special education. Okay, sorry. See, those are acronyms again. Here we go. All right. So, but here's the point I'm trying to make. She couldn't qualify for special ed, so she couldn't get in the program. So I went to our special ed director this year. I said, look, she's not going to survive. She's a freshman. She's failing. We're going to put her in an APP program. Well, she's not in special education. She didn't have to be in special education. We have charter flexibility. Now she's becoming a very successful student. She will graduate, and I hope she'll go on to maybe even technical college. We do simple things like, you know, in the summers you see kids doing marching band and all kind of physical activities. We give kids credit now for PE. They take a health class, they knock a class out in the summer. There's a ton. We have an ag STEM program where kids go to a farm and they work with a farm that's graduated from the University of Georgia. They get academic credit. There's so many things that you can do to make a difference in kids. Our graduation rate since we become a charter system has gone from 74.4% to 90%. And that's not the only reason us being a charter system. But I want to tell you, I thank you for funding it. I guarantee you it's making a difference. And if you'd like to ever come to Putnam County or Madison County, we'd love to show you around. And I'll tell you what else we've done. We've not lowered our standards. Our AP scores, our AP program, we've made national lists. We took kids that 10 years ago they said they couldn't take AP classes. Our enrollment's doubled, but our passing rates also increased. So you can increase the expectations, but you can use this power. You can use flexibility to make a difference. I thank you for those funds, and I want you to know you're making a difference.
Let me ask you, that's great. Let me ask you something now. The 180 school systems, 2 systems chose to stay under the state, said we don't want any flexibility to leave it alone. Every other system in the state have the same flexibility you have, basically. Is that correct?
Well, ours is as a blanket. You know,
yeah, yours is blanket. They have to ask each time they want to waive. And we're looking at changing that also. But why would a system, why did 130, because I love it. I love what you're doing. I've worked with Dan Weber. Dan and I served when he served as chairman. I love this idea he did. But why wouldn't all these 135 others choose your system? Why didn't they? Why did they choose not to do it? I mean, I'm just asking you to theorize.
Okay.
If we had to theorize.
You know.
There is some concern oftentimes with any of us giving up control and opportunities.
I wanted the committee to hear this. Go ahead.
For input. And that's just not education, that's everywhere. But I will argue the point that by giving some more freedoms to parents and to staff and to community, you actually gain more in return than you give up. So I think the governing authorities was a concern, Chairman, that a lot of school systems were concerned about.
Instead of top down, you're bottom up. That's what you're saying.
We're all inclusive, yes.
Yeah,
All
that's,
of
and I wanted you to say, because, you know, because that's also the money. You're right. I want to ask you this question. Do you think it's that this is sustainable over the years? If we got more, could the state afford it? Because y'all get what, so much per child? Is that how you?
$83 per FTE.
Per FTE for your child, yeah, okay.
So-
And the, capped at 25,000.
4.5
$4.5 million, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, okay.
Could that be sustained? I'm going to defer to.
No, I mean, I'm just throwing out some questions to you. If the other 135 school systems came in at $4 million apiece, you know, that we're talking about, you know, could we do 400 more million? You know, that's what I'm wondering, yeah.
We'd love to have $4 million because $88 times.
Oh, I know, yeah.
Get it by the number of students, bro.
3,
Yeah, I know it's number. If you have 100 students, you don't get it. I know it. No, I'm just saying, could we stay? Okay. But no, you answer my question. You have a question, all right?
I want to thank you guys.
I think you're doing a great job anyway, let me tell you.
A lot of the members of the committee were not here when we passed the initial Charter Systems Act. And a criticism I've gotten, which it sounds like you guys are getting it right. The criticism has been there wasn't real independence. When we passed the act, the initial structure for charter systems was a covenant. That the state would covenant with the school system, that if we lift Title 20 requirements off of you, the district would let the schools run themselves. And that is the essence of what charter systems was, is the districts will let schools run them, councils basically run their schools in exchange for the state lifting Title 20 requirements. I've heard again and again and again, in many places that's a complete sham, that ain't happening, that the districts take the money, they take the flexibility from the state, they take the dollars, and schools don't have school level control. It sounds like you guys are doing that though. And I so appreciate that, because that was the whole purpose, and that was kind of the deal. That was kind of the covenant between us and charter systems. And it sounds like you guys are seeing the value of that school level responsibility. Could you comment on, was it difficult for you guys to make that step? And what could we do to incentivize other charter systems who maybe aren't really living out the other half of the bargain where schools have that kind of flexibility? How do we make that happen? Because you guys are living out what we thought would happen. You give this kind of responsibility down the schools, they will step up, the engagement will step up, and great things will happen. But I'm not seeing that in every one of your peers. What do we need to do to make that better?
If I may, I'll speak first, and then Dr. McCann can speak second. Much to your point about, you may have heard that some school districts may not give given as much responsibility out. I will also say that from our standpoint, the freedom from Title 20 and state board rules when we first started is not what it is today. So it's been a journey. So I would say that this journey, and we just approved our charter through 2025. So we have finished our first 5-year charter, and we were granted a second 10-year charter. So a charter system through 2025. But in the beginning, both the DOE, the state of Georgia, the systems migrating through this covenant was difficult. 7-8 years into that, there have been many inroads made. So I would challenge the fact that of that original group, I would believe that they're giving the freedom because they've seen the struggle. The DOE, the state of Georgia, has been given freedom to districts, and districts have then in turn been given that freedom.
Yeah, I agree. They were putting roadblocks. Originally it was, you had this freedom, but then there's a roadblock here. So you're right. Now they've just pretty well turned you loose. It's good.
And I'll give you an example that you understand. You've got a fast pass that when you go through security, you can show it and go forward and go quickly. We thought that's what we had, but then we were made to stand in the security line. Even though we had the fast pass, we weren't necessarily able to go quickly. That is absolutely getting better, and it's just going to continue to take time and work with all the entities as we maneuver through this relationship.
if you had a constituent that contacted you or someone contacted you about that, I would go back to your application or your renewal. It clearly lists what's supposed to be happening, and it should be happening. And if it's not, then Houston, we do have a problem. So that's what I would think. But sometimes I've had, very rarely, but sometimes somebody wanted flexibility in some, like we're a rural county. Everybody can't start and end when they want to because the buses have to be coordinated. So there's some things sometimes that are simple. Maybe that could be it, or there could be a possibility that a district has said they're going to do something and not doing it. I don't know. So, but it's in writing what they're going to say.
As they look at their contracts for renewal, those are things they're holding them accountable for now.
Yes,
You
sir.
didn't, you did, you didn't, so you're right. All right, we could go on. Dan, I'll let you close out, and then we're going to close the meeting. Dan Weber, I want you all to meet Dan. Dan used to serve as chairman of the Senate Education Committee. He and I worked together for years, and this was his dream. And he tried to get some things done, so finally he's accomplished. I want to commend him. So Dan, summarize, close it out. And this, close the meeting.
Briefly address what Representative Setzler asked about. We worked together on that legislation, 2007, as you may recall, and that is the intent. I will say to you, I think at this point of the 43 systems, a healthy majority is doing real school level governance. Some are not at the level we would like to see. But as Charter System Foundation, we are a nonprofit. We're governed by a 7-member board of directors comprised of 7 of our superintendents. And we get voluntary contributions from our systems. We're also under contract with the Department of Education. And one of the things we do each year is about a half dozen regional workshops around the state to train school governance teams directly on school governance, flexibility, autonomy, how to run a meeting. And it's an ongoing process. One of the things that we're excited about right now is we are launching what we call an online collaboration platform. We are asking Dr. Emily Lembeck, former superintendent of Marietta Schools, to head that up as our consultant. We're using a software platform called Slack. If you're a businessman, you might be aware of it. It's a messaging app that allows teams to collaborate. So the school governance team down in Dougherty County will be able to communicate directly with school governance teams in Putnam County, Madison County. These are some of the requests that we've gotten from our school governance teams around the state. We hope that will be a success. We see a huge potential there if we can get school governance teams, central office people talking with each other, asking questions and sharing ideas, because there's a lot going on out there in charter systems, and we appreciate the opportunity to come and share some of that with you today.
Well, I'm impressed. I tell you, as I said, it was your dream, and the dream is a reality. Y'all have done an excellent job, and you have. And I was just asking those questions, and I knew that because a lot of principals said, superintendent said, I will not turn loose my authority. It's going to be top down or whatever. So, and it has worked and it's worked well. And with the wraparound service, I know at Marietta what she's done, their charter system, and they're doing all this other, and it's doing real community involvement. Anybody have any questions? But I want to thank all of our presenters for a great presentation. It's been a good day. We've been well, and I tell you, we got more than I thought we were. We're going to adjourn and thank the senators and thank everyone for coming. Appreciate it. Our next meeting for the House will be next Thursday. We have 6 pieces of legislation. We'll probably hear 4 of them next Thursday, 4 of them. And if y'all could stick around, Keith Everson, are you here? I know if Keith said, okay. Robert, could you give me 2 minutes? 2 minutes. Could you give me a?
I admire your enthusiasm, too. That's contagious.